It's my great privilege to introduce Lisa Raitt, former Member of Parliament representing the riding of Malton, the former Minister of Labour for the Conservative Party of Canada. Ms. Raitt, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for the invitation. As you know, I sit with the advisory group for this, I think, really interesting and incredible Ontario Citizens Assembly that you're all undertaking now. I know it's a sunny day, at least it's a sunny day where I'm sitting here in Milton, Ontario. So I want to tell you why what you're doing is really important and why I'm grateful that you're here today. First of all, the workplace is changing. I mean, we know that, we see it. We just went through the pandemic and you saw all the changes that are happening. Lots of folks are saying, why do I want to spend $1,000 a month commuting to my old workplace in downtown Toronto when I can really do my job from home? And others are saying, we need to have people go back into the downtown core because that's where we work. We need the retail. We need to make sure that we're looking after our families and our businesses as well. So in the workplace, we do have some serious conversations that are going to happen. And quite frankly, I don't think one person has the answer. Certainly the government does not have the answer. Trust me, if you're looking to the government to solve problems, you're going to the wrong place. That's why I think it's so important that you're here deliberating to give advice. Other things that are changing in the workplace, if any of you follow social media or you have an interest in the topic, my husband has young onset Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed at 56 years old, and I became overnight a caregiver. And I now know the caregiver's world, where you may be in your mid 50s, your career is going well, you want maybe to get a promotion, maybe you want to take on some extra work, maybe you just want to get more training. But the reality is that you have a whole other part-time job on the side of looking after a loved one. Now, some folks have that in childcare as well. For me, it was having my husband suddenly not be able to work anymore. And then, of course, being in a place now in long-term care, which has its difficulties as well in terms of caregiving. So I personally don't know if I have a voice in the workplace to talk about the extra calls on my time and why I may not be able to make it to a certain meeting at a certain time, or my hours may not be flexible, or the fact that I'm carrying a lot more stress. So I think as dementia increases, and it is increasing, we're calling it a slow pandemic, as this increases, as the pressure increases on generations that are behind me, I think it's important for the workplace to be able to have a normal conversation about caregiving and the impacts of it. So not to put a pitch in on what I think you guys should be talking about, but certainly I think that those two examples of what to do after pandemic and what to do about coming dementia issues are good things to talk about in terms of how are we going to address those in the workplace. So is what you're doing valuable? Okay, this is where I come at you from being a former minister. I will tell you it is. And politicians always like hearing unfiltered points of view from their voters, from their constituents, meaning they want to be as close as they possibly can. Although they hate town halls because you never know where they're going to go. But you do want to get as much information as you can directly from people. And this is a beautiful vehicle for that. Now, you're going to put a lot of work in. There's going to be a report that's going to be written, and it will be submitted to officials. It'll be submitted to ministers, to ministerial staff. It'll be discussed, and that is a good place for it to be. I think one of you mentioned in your bios that, government works slow. Well, you got it. Government is really slow, except for when it wants to move fast. So when it wants to move fast, it's incredibly important to have this material available, that it's digested, that it's been done, a study's been done that you can point to, pull it off the shelf and say, okay, this is what they found. And all good ideas start at some place. And this is as good as any to find public policy that makes sense for the workplace, both here in Ontario and hopefully across Canada as well. So I wish you all the best. And I thank you very much for your service to this. It really is a service. And I hope you enjoy what it's like to be involved in making public policy. It's the best job I ever had. Although I like working at CIBC, that's good too. But it is fundamentally the best job I ever had. And I wish you all the best. And thank you, Andrew, for inviting me.
And thank you so much, Ms. Raitt, for those wonderful remarks and for sharing your personal story around worker voice and for underscoring the value of the work of this assembly and your advice for our members to take democracy into their own hands a bit with this and not waiting for their elected leaders to to be the ones to act, and being able to speak with that clear voice is in some ways how this assembly can guide their elected representatives. Thank you so much.
No, my great pleasure. The terminology we use, by the way, the bureaucratie speak is your work will inform public policy. So let's make sure it works well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.